Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
The Fall Line Podcast, a true crime audio serial, investigates the March 18th, 1990 disappearance of Augusta, Georgia twins Danette and Jeanette Millbrook. The twins, who were 15 at the time, were treated without cause as runaways, and their case was closed less than a week after their 17th birthdays. Their family worked tirelessly to get the case reopened and finally managed to attract the notice of a newly elected sheriff in 2013. Since then, there has been no movement in the case, no leads, no investigative breakthroughs, and no answers. Why was the twins' case closed? What happened to their original case file? Why were they removed from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's database? The Fall Line Podcast works to amplify the voices of the twins' family and to uncover facts, explore and dispel rumors, and develop theories in the case. Tune in, join the discussion on Facebook, and remember, we must find Danette and Jeanette Millbrook. Find us on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey everyone, this is Jillian, and you are listening to Court Junkie Episode 32, Part 2. Before we get started, I have to give this disclaimer. If you have not yet listened to Part 1, please go back and listen to that first. Otherwise, you may not get the full context of this episode. So in Part 1, we went through the trial of Hemy Neuman, the man accused of, and now convicted of, murdering the husband of a woman he worked with, and who he had a romantic interest in. At his trial, Hemy admitted, through his attorneys, that he did in fact kill Rusty Sneiderman, but he claimed that he was insane when he did it. The jury, however, disagreed. They did agree that he was mentally ill, but disagreed that he didn't know right from wrong when the murder occurred. Hemy was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. But something rather interesting happened during Hemy's trial. The focus was not only on Hemy and what he admitted to doing, but it was also on Andrea, Rusty's wife. The implications being that Andrea lied about her relationship with Hemy, that they were really lovers, and that she may have even had some involvement in the actual murder of her husband. There was a point in the trial where the defense attorney told the judge that the defense, the prosecution, and the jury were all, quote, heading down the same road. He said they all share a common bond, which is that, quote, Andrea Sneiderman is playing each and every one of us for a fool. Andrea was hit pretty hard during the trial, and if you think that she's innocent of the implications being made against her, then you have to think that it was pretty horrible the way she was treated, especially at her husband's murder trial. But if you do believe that she had some involvement in it, you might be cheering the fact that she was treated that way. Well, today, the story continues. About a month after Hemy's verdict, there was more movement in the case. In April 2012, the district attorney's office sent a subpoena to a local news station requesting the entirety of Andrea Sneiderman's testimony during the Hemy Neuman murder trial. The DA wouldn't tell reporters exactly what they were looking at, but he did say that now that Hemy had been brought to justice, he had certain beliefs about Andrea's involvement. And aside from possibly being prosecuted on those beliefs, Andrea was also hit with a civil suit in May 2012. Rusty's brother Steve filed a wrongful death suit against Andrea, alleging that she helped orchestrate Rusty's murder. But Andrea wasn't backing down. In response, she filed a defamation suit against Steve, saying that he had publicly accused her of having helped kill Rusty. She also filed a wrongful death suit herself against Hemy. But then, at about 8:30 a.m. on August 2nd, 2012, prosecutors presented evidence to a grand jury, and after about an hour of deliberations, a criminal indictment with Andrea Sneiderman's name on it was handed down. So prosecutors, along with DeKalb sheriff's officers, went to Andrea's lake house in Putnam County and took her into custody. She was charged with racketeering, murder with malice, criminal attempt to commit murder, insurance fraud, and making false statements and perjury. The indictment contained some aggressive allegations, including that Andrea and Hemy, quote, conspired among themselves and with each other to engage in an interrelated pattern of criminal activity motivated by, and the effect of which, was insurance fraud and pecuniary gain. The indictment went on to detail that at the time of his death, Rusty had 2 life insurance policies with a combined payout value of $2 million and another near $1 million in bank accounts. Quote, Hemy Neuman and Andrea Sneiderman conspired together to murder Rusty Sneiderman so that they could enjoy a life together, eliminate Hemy's debt problems, and fully benefit from the assets the Sneidermans had acquired, as well as the proceeds of Rusty's life insurance policies. The indictment then alleges that when Rusty saw the suspicious man outside of the Sneiderman home on November 10th, 8 days before the murder, that was the first murder attempt that he and Andrea had planned. It states that on or prior to November 10th, 2010, Andrea provided Hemy with Rusty's schedule for the morning of November 10th, as well as information concerning a walking path near the Sneiderman home. And then, on or prior to November 18th, after that first attempt had failed, Andrea allegedly provided Hemy with Rusty's schedule for the morning of November 18th. The indictment then goes on to detail how Andrea misled the police about her relationship with Hemy numerous times. Andrea's attorneys released a statement after her arrest, saying that it was choreographed for the media. She was released on August 23rd on a $500,000 bond and was put on house arrest until her trial. As her trial grew closer, the civil case against Andrea continued to progress too. And with that came new accusations. The attorney for Steve Sneiderman, Rusty's brother, who filed the wrongful death suit against Andrea, sought information about Andrea's relationship with a man named Joseph. I'm leaving out his last name, since that part's not important. In a filing to the Fulton Superior Court, Steve's attorney wrote, "What is known today about defendant's relationship with Joseph bears a striking similarity to the defendant's relationship with the man who shot Rusty. It is unknown when Joseph became involved in the defendant's life, but upon information and belief, it was prior to the murder of Rusty, as Andrea and Joseph had arranged playdates with their children." The attorney then went on to say that there were 58 recorded conversations between Joseph and Andrea from the DeKalb County Jail from after her arrest. She wrote, quote, "In a conversation on August 2nd, Joseph, apparently unaware that he was being recorded, is heard crying and professed his love for defendant Sneiderman. This bold romantic gesture is met by defendant, who is apparently aware of the recording, with a response eerily similar to her handling of Hemy Neuman. I do not know what to say." At a hearing just days after that news came out, prosecutor Don Geary told the judge that investigators were also looking into the alleged relationship between Andrea and Joseph. And why were they looking into that? Because he said that relationship might be evidence of a possible new motive in the murder case against Andrea. Geary said, quote, "Evidence is starting to come up that might show that it was not for Mr. Neuman to be with the defendant, but for someone else. Joseph might be that someone else." He requested that Joseph be added to the witness list at Andrea's murder trial. But Andrea's attorneys were adamant that Andrea's relationship with Joseph had absolutely no bearing on the case. According to Andrea's attorneys, he was a close friend of hers, and the exact status of their relationship could best be described as to be determined. So this new accusation definitely raised some questions. Did this mean that the state had new evidence proving Andrea's involvement? Or did it mean that their original theory, that Hemy and Andrea conspired to kill Rusty for the money and so they could be together, was falling apart? At a pretrial hearing in April, investigator Mark Potter testified that Andrea's BlackBerry showed that Hemy had texted her on the day of the murder, on November 18, 2010. But the text message had been physically deleted off of her phone, and so it was impossible to know what that text message said. But on July 26, 2013, the answer to the question I posed earlier about whether the case against Andrea might be falling apart was answered. At another pretrial hearing, the DA asked Judge Adams to dismiss the 3 most serious charges against Andrea, including the murder charge. He told the judge that after he received evidence from the defense, he re-interviewed witnesses, which led him to the conclusion that they just didn't have enough evidence against her. Hemy's attorney, Bob Rubin, who had pointed the finger at Andrea during Hemy's trial, told reporters that he was deeply disappointed that the DA was dropping the charges. He said, quote, "It was certainly unfair to Andrea Sneiderman, who, again, I'm not a big fan of, but it's unfair to her to put her through that. Why indict those charges in the first place if you don't think you can prove them beyond a reasonable doubt?" But although the murder, felony murder, and aggravated assault charges had been dropped, Andrea was still facing 13 lesser counts: 4 counts of perjury, 7 counts of making false statements, and 1 count each of hindering the apprehension of a criminal and concealment of material fact. Prosecutors were still alleging that she had concealed her intimate relationship with Hemy and had intentionally misled the investigation. She was now facing anywhere from 5 to 10 years in prison. And so in August 2013, Andrea went on trial. In her opening statements, District Attorney Kelly Hill said the evidence will show that Andrea's relationship with Hemy resulted in her husband's murder, that she suspected Hemy immediately, and that she lied throughout the investigation and throughout the trial of her husband's murderer. She said Andrea and Hemy were having an affair, and while this was going on, there was tension between Rusty and Andrea. The police had no leads, so the day after the shooting, they interviewed Andrea at her home. They specifically asked her, "Is anyone interested in you?" She said her boss was, but then told them that it was nothing. She didn't tell them about the details of their relationship, about the trips they had taken, about the fact that he had told her that he loved her and wanted to marry her, that she had sent him close to 200 pictures of her children after he said he wanted to raise them. And although she mentioned his name, she concealed the truth, Hill said. She kept the police from being able to figure out who shot and killed her husband. Not only did she hide the relationship, but she hid her suspicions of his guilt. She told her friend that she suspected Hemy, but not the police. As for why she didn't just get a divorce, Hill said that Andrea was raised to not believe in divorce. Hill explained how 2 minutes after she got the phone call from the daycare saying that there had been an accident, she tried calling Hemy. And then she tried calling Hemy a few more times that morning.
You'll always, also, ladies and gentlemen, have an opportunity to hear and see evidence of the defendant when she arrived at the daycare center. And you'll see that she jumps out of her car, she falls into the arms of a police officer. She's devastated. They take her inside of the daycare immediately, place her in an office as a holding area while she waited for her parents. And the evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that when she's in that office, in the holding area at the daycare center, before her parents arrived, Moments after she's devastated and falling into the arms of a police officer, she calls Hemy Neuman again. She doesn't get him. Shortly thereafter, her parents get to the daycare center, and they left and went home to the defendant's house in Dunwoody, which is not far from the daycare center. She went home to change clothes so that she could go to the hospital, where her husband is now being pronounced dead. And while she's at home, so she can go to the, changing clothes so she can go to the hospital, the evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, she called Hemy Neuman one more time. She doesn't get him. That's what the evidence will show. The evidence, ladies and gentlemen, will show she called Hemy several times that morning. Not only did she call him, but she texted him. And the fact that she called Hemy and the fact that she texted Hemy, she hid from the police. She didn't tell him. The evidence will also show, ladies and gentlemen, not only the fact of the calls and the text messages, but the proof of the calls from her telephone handset had been deleted before she turned it over. She suspected him immediately, but she hid her suspicion, and she hid the evidence that would have told the police about events the morning her husband was shot and killed.
She asked the jury to listen closely to the evidence and to find Andrea guilty of hindering the investigation into her husband's murder. The defense attorney, Thomas Clegg, told the jury that this case isn't what it seems to be. He said that Andrea Sneiderman spoke with the police after her husband was gunned down, and during that interview, Andrea mentioned Hemy's name, that she was the one who brought Hemy into the investigation. She was asked a specific question, and she answered it, and Clegg pointed out that she didn't even hesitate. This was within 36 hours of the murder. She gave them his name and gave them the motive. He said she did not know that he had anything to do with it, that she was just answering their questions. Clegg told the jury that Andrea did nothing whatsoever to impede the investigation, and she is not on trial for Rusty's murder. He said the fact that Andrea was trying to call Hemy after the murder only proves that she had nothing to do with it.
She ain't on trial for murder, folks. Let's make sure we all understand that. You have heard the indictment read. She is not accused of actually having been present when the murder was committed. There would be no question whatsoever that Hemy Neuman was alone when he committed this heinous act. There is no evidence whatsoever to show that she suggested that Hemy Neuman do this, that she encouraged him, that she was aware of the fact that he had purchased the gun, that she was aware of the fact that he had purchased a fake beer, that she was aware of the fact that he had driven a rental van on the day of the crime. Quite frankly, the evidence is going to show, and I think Ms. Hill made reference to it in opening, that at some point that morning she was trying to reach Hemy Neuman. There will be no evidence to show that Hemy Neuman, that she knew, that Hemy Neuman had tried to set up an alibi by leaving his phone back at his office at GE. She's trying to reach him. She can't reach him because Hemy Neuman has thought ahead. Hemy Neuman has decided, I can set up an alibi, I can deflect attention from myself. If they come asking, my cell phone will ping off the towers here near the General Electric building. I will not be a suspect. Instead, this woman is charged with 13 different crimes. You have heard them read. There is one count of hindering the apprehension of a criminal, one count of concealing facts within the political subdivision, yada, 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 4 counts of false statement, and 7 counts of perjury. Interesting thing about those counts. With one exception, in regards to count 1, the hinder and apprehension charge, and a portion of that particular count, there is an allegation that she is supposed to have deleted certain information. Other than that alleged deletion, there is not one allegation in which the state of Georgia will contend to you that Andrea Sneiderman ever committed any sort of physical act in the commission of a crime.
He also said that contrary to the prosecution's claims, They won't hear any evidence that Andrea deleted anything off her phone.
The state of Georgia will contend that somehow she deleted certain particular phone information on that day, November 18th, which was relevant and germane to the murder of Rusty Sneiderman. Wait to hear that evidence. You ain't gonna hear it, okay? You're not gonna come close to hearing that. You will not hear who it is that deleted the information. You will not know how the information was deleted. You will have no idea when the information was deleted. You will have no idea what specifically the information is supposed to have pertained or related to. There will be so many particular gaps in that particular charge that it will be breathtaking. And what is interesting is that the state of Georgia will ask you to rely on a hunch, ask you to make a guess, ask you to make an inference to conclude that she must have been guilty. That will be, ladies and gentlemen, a consistent theme throughout the course of this case.
Everything you hear will be based on inference, speculation, and hunches, he said. He pointed out that Andrea actually helped with the investigation. He said at Rusty's funeral, for example, she had her friends pass out copies of the sketch the police had released, and she allowed them to search their home and their lake house and turned over Rusty's computer. She met with the police numerous times, including one meeting that lasted more than 3 hours. She spoke with security companies to increase her security because she didn't know if whoever killed Rusty would come after her next. He asked the jury to find her not guilty. The first few witnesses focused on the testimony Andrea gave during Hemy's trial and highlighted what the prosecution said were lies. As the witnesses would testify, the prosecutor would then play a portion of Andrea's testimony, showing the jury the discrepancies between what the witnesses were saying versus what Andrea testified to. One witness was a GE employee who went through Hemy and Andrea's email communications once the murder investigation started, as well as their travel reimbursement requests for many trips they went on together. She said that Andrea requested a reimbursement for her trip to Longmont, Colorado in July 2010, but that Hemy did not. And as you'll recall, Andrea testified in Hemy's trial that she went to Longmont, Colorado for training, but that Hemy joined her out there for work purposes as well. But not only did Hemy not submit any travel reimbursement requests to GE, there was also no record of any hotel room in his name at the Hampton Inn in Longmont either, as a Longmont detective would also testify to. There was only a room in Andrea's name. The prosecutor also had the employee read an email exchange between Hemy and Andrea, where Hemy references how he will need a ride home from the airport after their Longmont trip because he is not on business travel. The prosecutor then played portions of Andrea's testimony from Hemy's trial, in which she said she was not aware that Hemy had sent her flowers and chocolates when she first arrived in Longmont. However, the prosecutor presented an email exchange where Hemy had actually sent her the e-receipt for the flowers he had purchased. Andrea had written back, "So thoughtful and sweet. I knew you might try something like this." Some witnesses who testified in Andrea's trial had also testified in Hemy's, and since it was repeated testimony, I'm not going to get too much into it. For example, the bartender at Pulse nightclub in Greenville, South Carolina, again testified that she saw Andrea and Hemy dancing closely on the dance floor, groping each other and kissing. And Hemy's friend Melanie White, who again testified that Hemy had told her about their affair. The prosecution also played testimony from Andrea from Hemy's trial, when she said she did not find out what happened to Rusty until she got to the hospital. She didn't know that he had been shot and didn't know that he was dead. Prosecutors then called Rusty's father to the stand, who again testified about the phone call he received from Andrea the morning of Rusty's murder.
So I'm sorry, tell me again, what time did this call come in?
About 9:30.
About 9:30? Okay. And what, if anything, do you remember about the conversation?
She called. She was very excited. Her voice was very high-pitched. And she said that Rusty had been shot. She was so sorry, and that she was going to Dunwoody Prep to find out exactly what had happened.
And where was she on her way to?
She was on her way to Dunwoody Prep.
Are you certain of the words that she used?
Absolutely.
Have you in your life ever heard news like this before?
Never.
What was your reaction?
I didn't believe it.
Why didn't you believe her?
Who would shoot Rusty?
What else did you say anything to Andrea when she called and told
I
you?
told her to call me back as soon as she knew something.
And then what?
She hung up.
How long can you estimate this phone call lasted?
30 seconds, 40 seconds. I have no concept as to time. It was just going on.
Detective Andy Thompson, the lead detective in the case, took the stand and testified about how Andrea misled their investigation. He said that after the forensic sketch was made of the suspect, he showed it to Andrea.
Once the forensic sketch is drawn up based on the description, what, if anything, do you do with that sketch?
There were 3 sketches made up.
And you say 3 sketches, is that in relation to your 3 witnesses?
For the 3 witnesses. Each
Okay.
witness did their own sketch with the forensic artist. And based on all the information I had, I picked the sketch that most closely matched everybody's description at the time that they were interviewed.
Okay. What did you do with that?
I presented the image to Andrea first to see if it reminded her of anybody. Do you know this person?
What'd she say?
And she said no, but she kept asking me can we take the beard off the picture? Can you remove the beard? She asked me that several times, and I explained to her, we can't do that because that's not what the witnesses saw. They saw the suspect with the beard, and we don't know what the facial structure is underneath the beard, so we can't guess at that.
Okay. So at that time, did she maybe try and cover the beard or anything and take a look at the sketch?
I don't recall if she tried to do that or not.
Do you recall if she made mention, you told us about the beard, do you recall if she made mention about any other physical characteristic that was shown in that sketch?
No, the sketch did not remind her of anybody.
Did she mention the eyes in the sketch?
I don't remember.
Did she mention the nose in the sketch?
No, she was just focusing on the beard.
Okay.
He said he obtained a search warrant in the investigation for Andrea's home, and he said he was met with resistance when he tried to execute it.
And did you in fact go out to the defendant's home to execute the search warrant?
I did.
Were you successful?
I was not.
Tell us what happened.
When we arrived at the house, Andrea, her father, and mother came out of the front door, and I told them that we were there to serve the search warrant, and Andrea's father refused to let us in. I was trying to explain to him that you really don't have a choice. We have to come in and serve the search warrant. He continued to refuse to let us inside the house, and I was about to tell him, you either get out of the way or you're going to go to jail for obstruction. But at that point, Sergeant Cordolino, my supervisor, said...
Don't tell us what he said, but did he interject himself?
Sergeant Cordolino interjected, and we ended up not serving that search warrant that night.
Okay. Now, when you had this encounter with the defendant's father, you said that both she and her mother were present as well?
Right, everybody was out in front.
All right.
Andrea, the father and the mother, were out in front of the house.
So you and Sergeant Cordolino left the
Correct.
residence at that time?
Yes.
Did you do anything else that day?
No.
He said the next day, on November 19th, he again went to Andrea's home. They sat down at the table to discuss what had happened, and he said she gave him a list of suspects, like an exterminator who would know their schedule, and a couple that Rusty had prior business with.
During the interview, did you get or did you ask for the information to help you in developing leads?
I did.
And were you given any names or ideas as it relates to who could potentially have been responsible for shooting and killing Rusty?
I was given many names.
And were you given, by whom were you given many names?
By whom?
Correct.
Andrea Sneiderman gave me a list of names
Okay.
throughout the entire discussion.
So the defendant gave you a list of names.
That's correct.
Did that list of names include Hemy Neuman?
It did.
Now, tell us what information, if any, you asked about the names that were on that list.
During the entire discussion, we were mostly talking about Rusty's business dealings. We spoke about Discovery Point.
What was Discovery Point?
Discovery Point is a daycare franchise. We spoke about the owners of Discovery Point, how Rusty worked for them.
Do you remember the names of the owners?
I remember the last name was Clark.
Clark?
Mr. and Mrs. Clark.
Mr. and Mrs. Clark, okay.
We spoke about Star Voicemail. And
Star Voicemail.
Star Voicemail was an enterprise that Rusty and Neil Jagoda were trying to start up as their own business.
Jagoda?
Jagoda.
Is another name. Was that one of the names on the list?
That was one of the names on the list, and she also mentioned that name during the discussion at the hospital.
Okay.
We spoke about investors in the Star Voicemail. We spoke about her exterminator, how the exterminator knows the schedule of the family. He's there quite often. They're good friends. In fact, he called while we're doing this discussion at the house, and I spoke to him briefly on the phone, got his information, and followed up the phone call once I left the house.
Okay.
We spoke about a suspicious male that was beside the house, that was Rusty found laying down next to their gas line into the house.
When did that incident occur?
I don't remember the date, but it was prior to the murder by days. And she actually was emphasized that she thought that the person laying next to the gas line was an extremely important person that we need to look into.
Now, you told us that she gave you information that included Hemy Neuman, Mr. and Mrs. Clark, Mr. Jagoda, the investors in Star Voicemail, an exterminator, and an individual that was lying beside the house.
That's correct.
On a date prior to the shooting.
Correct.
Now, was this actually a physical list that was given, or a list of names that came out throughout the course of the discussion / interview?
During the course of the discussion.
All right. And tell me how much information you were able to get from the defendant about the exterminator.
Well, just that
How much information were you able to get?
enough to know that that's somebody I should probably talk to.
Okay. So the exterminator kind of went down on your list.
Correct.
Now, what about Mr. Jagoda? How much information were you able to get about Mr. Jagoda?
I actually spoke to Mr. Jagoda the day of the 18th. He came in to do an interview.
Did you call him in?
I called him in, and
All
he
right.
was...
So you actually called Mr. Jagoda in the day before?
Correct.
Based on the information you had gotten at the hospital?
Correct.
And from the defendant, how much information were you able to get about Mr. Jagoda?
Enough to establish that what she was telling me was the same thing that he told me in the interview before, so I know that it was legitimate information.
Okay. So would you agree or disagree that the mention of Mr. Jagoda and information about him took how much time?
It was a decent amount of time. It was, I don't know exactly how much, it was more, it was, I want to say 15, 20 minutes talking about Star Voicemail, maybe a little bit longer, and Neil Jagoda was the primary partner with Rusty in this business venture.
And what about the conversation about the exterminator? How much time did that take?
It didn't take a lot of time, but it was she had enough detail about what the exterminator knew to make me say, well, that's somebody I have to include in my investigation. She provided, like I've already stated, that he knew the schedule because he's there during the mornings to do the extermination. He knows when he can and can't be there because he knows when people are going to be at the house or not at the house, and he's been doing it long enough that they knew each other very well.
This is all information you got from the defendant?
That's correct.
He said it was after about an hour and 16 minutes when she told him about Hemy.
Approximately an hour and 16 minutes into the interview, I specifically asked Andrea, the defendant, if anybody had attempted to break up their marriage or shown interest in her, and she said yes. Her boss, Hemy Neuman.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you for a second, because you just told us an hour and 16 minutes into the interview/discussion, you asked her a specific question.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was at that time that you got the name Hemy Neuman.
Correct.
So is it safe to say that this information was not volunteered?
That's correct.
What about the information about the other individuals? Did you have to ask specific questions to get that information, or did they give you that information freely?
It was given voluntarily.
But he said she focused mainly on the unknown person that Rusty had seen at the site of their house 8 days before the murder. She said he was Mexican, and she told Detective Thompson that she would give them what they wanted about their business dealings, but she said she wanted them to focus on that unknown Mexican man. Part of the interview they had with Andrea was played in court.
We don't know a good time to ask you questions, and so we're going to have to delve into these businesses.
Fine.
And I want you to understand that we're going in every direction we possibly can on this.
It's fine. I totally understand. I want you to do that, right? I want you to do that, but I want you to understand where I'm coming from in the sense that, and I'm sure everyone who's sitting on my side, well, I mean, not everyone says this, but I think you're barking up the wrong tree.
Okay, cool.
Because this Mexican the people that Rusty deals with and the way we do business is not what you're thinking. And so, or not maybe what the movies have in it or what all this other shit is. I know, but I'm saying to you that I think, I'm not suggesting that this wasn't calculated in the sense that there was someone that knew where he was going and purposely shot him. I'm just telling you that the businesses he's been involved in, it's not, there's no one that he knows or has known that has it, that would want to kill him. No one. And so this man on the side of my house, yes, I could see that man wanting to kill Rusty because he saw his face and he was worried that something might get in trouble. I could see that. That makes sense to me. Do you understand? So that makes sense to me. I have no problem with you looking into all of this. That's lovely. You want to have 50 people looking into our business dealings? Great, because you know what? It kind of makes me feel better because Rusty's done such great work and done so many great things. You'll see that too, okay?
I say that because this other stuff with the man outside, we're going to look into that, but we don't need you for that. Obviously, you gave us what you
But are you having people look into that? I see you sitting here, and I want to help you, but I want to know that that other thing is being investigated with the same amount of energy. Because if you're not, then I think you're barking up the wrong tree and you're wasting time.
Okay.
So you understand where I'm coming from, yes?
Yes.
Okay. I'm happy to give you all of this. I'm happy to find the bank account. I'm happy to show you money. I'm happy to do whatever.
Detective Thompson again reiterated that Andrea had given them Hemy's name when he asked if anyone had been trying to break up their family. But he said she ended up backing down from that and actually ended up telling him that Hemy wasn't really trying to break up their family. That part of the interview was then played in court.
When I say recently, within the past year, that has expressed an interest in you in trying to break up the family.
Yes.
Who?
My boss.
Your boss?
Yes.
What's his name?
Hemy. Why do you have to tell me?
Hemy? How do you spell it?
Neuman.
Neuman. How old is he?
I don't know, 46. I have no idea. In his late 40s.
Does he have white hair, black hair?
Gray and black hair.
Gray and black? Pepper?
Sure.
Is he balding?
No.
Does he wear glasses?
Yes.
Is there anything that's really distinctive about him? No. No. How has he tried to...
He hasn't done anything to break up my family. He's just expressed his feelings for me.
But has it been through flirting? Has he specifically said, I'm interested in you?
Yes, he specifically said that. Yes. It's okay.
Do you want to continue private?
No. No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Has it been anybody else? How about previous to within this year? Kind of when you guys were married? No? I really can't think of anything else to ask for.
Well, you didn't ask whether that was reciprocated.
Was it reciprocated?
No. I made it clear, and that's that. But, and this is not an individual that would do something like this.
Detective Thompson testified that when Andrea said that Hemy didn't really try to break up the family, it lowered the priority of looking into Hemy. He didn't think it was that serious. In another interview at the police station on November 24th, just days later, he asked Andrea more about Hemy and more about his advances towards her. She told him that it was a very polite come on and said Hemy really respected her as a person, that he had just told her that he has feelings for her and that he thinks that she's fantastic. She said she wants to be clear that they're friends and that they continued their friendship after he told her about his feelings. She said they got past it. But Thompson testified that Andrea continued to leave things out. For example, when they talked about the business trips that she and Hemy had taken together, she told him that she went to Longmont, Colorado alone and never told him that Hemy had joined her there. And when he asked her if they had ever stayed on the same floors or in rooms next to each other, she told him that they had no control over where the rooms were assigned.
And how many of those, your business trips, does your boss go with you? All of them?
Besides Longmont, California, or some training, he went on all of them, and I'll tell you why. He hadn't been to them either, and it was part of his goals and objectives, and he'll tell you that from his boss, that he needed to get out there more, and he wanted to introduce me to people also, and so he went with me. I could have shown up at those places by myself, but I'm not sure I would have gotten the respect or the attention. So, anyways. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Now,
and of course we traveled together, so we became friends, right? It's a good guy. You go over to England, you talk, right? It's a zillion hours. You're in the car, you're on the plane. I mean, what the?
Yeah, but you can't help it. If you don't get along, it's not a very long trip.
Exactly. And, we saw eye to eye from a business perspective on a lot of things.
Now, I know it'd be convenient to have rooms on the same floor.
Yep.
Have rooms on the same floor.
Sometimes. We didn't control it every time.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We didn't always control where the hotel puts us.
We did have control. What would be that in this situation?
I have no problem being next door to each other. That's neither here nor there. I mean, again, we were friends, and it didn't bother me, I guess.
He said had he known that they had actually requested adjoining rooms at one point, that would have been helpful to the investigation. He said when he got the warrant for Hemy's arrest, he didn't use any information that Andrea had provided to him. Shayna Citron, Andrea's former close friend, took the stand and testified about Andrea and Rusty's marriage. She said she first realized that Andrea and Rusty were having problems in September 2010. She and Andrea would have conversations about it, that their main issues were work, travel, and money. Andrea told Shayna that even though a lot of their problems were because she had gone to work at GE, she said that she was happy there and that for the first time she was doing something for herself and not for Rusty. And then, while they were out to lunch together, Andrea told her that her boss was in love with her.
Did she discuss with you whether or not she felt appreciated by her boss at work?
Yes. She said that he told her she was doing an amazing job. She's really making a difference. And then she also told me that he told her that he was in love with her.
What did you say when she told you that her boss told her that he was in love with her?
Oh my gosh, what do you mean? What do you mean he's in love with you? How do you feel about him? How bad is it with Rusty? What's going on?
And did she tell you how she felt about her boss?
She said that maybe if she had not been married, that she would be interested in him. There came a point in that conversation that I said, are things that bad? Are you and Rusty going to get a divorce? I couldn't even believe I was saying that, because they had been such a good team. She said to me that she would never divorce Rusty.
Shayna then became emotional on the stand.
After that lunch, I walked out thinking, oh my God, Andrea has checked out of this marriage. She was speaking about Rusty. Her eyes were dark and cold. When she was speaking about her boss, who I did not know his name at that point, when she was speaking about her boss, her eyes were sparkling.
Shayna also repeated her testimony about Andrea calling her at 8:30 in the morning Arizona time, which would be 10:30 in Georgia, telling her that Rusty had been shot. Even though Andrea's testimony was that she didn't know Rusty had been shot until they told her at the hospital.
When I picked up the phone, I was immediately saying, Andrea, I can't talk right now.
Why not? What did you have going on in the car?
Because I was in a rental car and I had my GPS on my cell phone routing me to where I was going. And I was afraid that if I was talking on the phone, I would miss any directions or whatever that my GPS was trying to tell me.
So when you said you couldn't talk, did you hang up?
No.
Why not?
Because Andrea was screaming into the phone.
What was she saying? Was she just screaming or was she saying something?
No, she said, Shayna, Rusty's been shot. I don't know if he's alive or dead. We're on the way to the hospital.
You sure she said he had been shot?
Yes.
And she was on her way to the hospital?
Yes. I will never forget that for the rest of my life.
Shayna said that on November 19th, the day after the murder, she went over to Andrea's house. She said there were a lot of people there, and they knew that the police were coming to question Andrea, her parents, and Rusty's parents. Shayna said she told Andrea to make sure to tell the police about Hemy.
I told her again that she needed to tell the police about her boss. And it was not just me telling her that.
Who else told her?
Andrea Lippman.
Is that the other lady that you said was a friend of hers?
Yes.
Shayna said that after the police left Andrea's house that day, she learned that there was a sketch of the suspect, and she and Andrea had a conversation about that.
And what was that discussion about?
At some point she said that the eyes of the sketch looked like Hemy.
Look like Hemy?
Yes.
Sometime after that, Andrea told Shayna that she talked to Hemy about the murder.
And what did she tell you about contact she had had with Hemy?
She told me she had called Hemy after the police investigators left her house.
Did she tell you about what time it was that she called him?
Yes.
What time?
Around midnight or so, after everyone went to sleep.
After everyone else in the house was asleep?
Yes.
Did the defendant tell you why she called him around midnight after everyone else had gone to sleep that night?
She told me she called him to tell him that she told the police about him and that she was trying to figure out if he had anything to do with it, and that she asked him if he had anything to do with it.
She asked Hemy Neuman, close in time to when the police came to her house in November,
Yes.
if he had anything to do with Rusty's murder.
Yes.
Did she say whether or not she told the police? Did she tell you whether or not she told the police she was going to call Hemy that night? Or close in time to that night?
I told her that she needed to tell the police, and she said to me, I'm afraid for what that would mean for me and my family.
For what? What would mean for her and her family?
For her to go to the police.
And tell the police what?
That she had asked Hemy if he had anything to do with it, and that the eyes on the sketch looked like Hemy's.
So, in December, when you had the conversation with her after she came back from Florida, what was that conversation about?
She showed me an email that Hemy had sent to her while she was in Florida. It was an email that had a song attached to it or something.
Did you see the email?
Yes, she showed it to me on her phone.
When she showed you the email, what, if anything, did you say to her?
That she needed to tell the police.
Did she respond?
Again, I'm afraid for what that would mean for me and my family.
Andrea's mother testified about the day Rusty was murdered. She too said that they were not told that Rusty was shot until after they got to the hospital. The deputy chief with the Dunwoody Police Department, David Sides, testified that prior to Hemy's arrest, Andrea kept downplaying Hemy as a suspect. He said they didn't know that Hemy had said he wanted to marry her, and had they known that, they would have immediately gone to question him about Rusty's murder. Andrea was interviewed twice in January 2011, once on January 4th before Hemy was arrested, and again on January 5th after his arrest. Sides testified that on January 4th, Andrea never said anything about Hemy being in love with her, being stalked by Hemy, or about Hemy being crazy. But on January 5th, after Hemy was arrested, she recalled things differently. Here are clips from that interview.
You and I have spent, I think, close to 4 hours together. And I've always been very forthright with you about what my goal is. My goal has always been to identify the suspect and prosecute him to the full extent of the law. And the only question I have today is, are you willing to help me do that?
Absolutely.
Are you ready to tell me the unabridged, unadulterated truth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when Rabbi called, he said you had some interesting things to tell me. That's Lieutenant Barnes.
I called him on my way to the hospital, along with several other people. So I was trying to call my friends. I was trying to tell him I wasn't coming back to work. I called my next-door office neighbor, but I called him a couple of times, more than once. And I told you, where was he? I don't know. At the time I just made, of course he's busy, he's in some meetings, right? He's in meetings all the time. So that's that. That's what started it on that front, for me in my mind. And then, this thing about him going into the hospital just seemed odd to me. And then, this Thursday, whatever this dinner, I told you yesterday, this holiday party they had. The the group had a holiday party on some Thursday or Friday night. And he sends me an email, the work email, saying, just wanted to let you know we weren't sure whether we should have the holiday party or not because of what happened to me. He thinks I would think everyone deserves a break. And then he proceeded to include the speech, the prayer that he said at the holiday party, which I couldn't even really read, and I didn't even, I read parts of it, and all I was getting was super aggravated, and I was most aggravated with the line of, everyone deserves a break. So I emailed him back and said, the only thing that anyone deserves is for Rusty to be back on this planet. And then he emails me back saying, I absolutely agree, honestly. And he's telling me.
Okay, let me answer this.
Okay, let me just finish for a minute. And then I said, and then he's like, be strong, blah, blah, blah. I said, nothing you're saying is helping. Do not text me. I said, do not email me. And then I didn't hear from him for a while, except for these emails from work saying he's sick, he's this, his grandmother, whatever, his mother-in-law died, all the stuff I told you yesterday. And then I went back and I checked my emails. And there's an email. You want to see it? Okay. There's an email from him. And I haven't been checking all my emails, but I saw an email from him. He sent me an iTunes song. I don't even know what that is. I've never gotten an iTunes song. And then there's a message at the top. When you send somebody a gift card. And it says something to the lines, and I'll show you, something to the effect of, I know you didn't want to hear from me. Because I told him I didn't want to hear from him. And he must be going through so much, and anger or something. And then it has a lot of dots in it. And then there's the word, I didn't, I didn't want. I didn't do it. I'm assuming that's what he meant.
The investigators told her that they have someone at GE interviewing their coworkers.
Based on the foundation of what he told us yesterday and what the co-workers told us today,
yeah.
What is it you think they told us?
That co-workers told you? I have absolutely no idea.
What do you think he told us?
Oh, I'm sure he told you that he thought I was in love with him. Or something along those lines. He's crazy. I don't know what he told you. That he was in love with me? That he was infatuated? That he stalked me? I don't know. You tell me. I don't know what he said. That he wanted to be my husband? That he went crazy? I'm hoping he said he went crazy. Because he's crazy. I don't know what he would say.
Why do you say it's crazy?
Because you told me that he shot someone. My husband. Why would anyone shoot anybody else? Why would someone, no matter how they might feel about someone else, why would they kill them? Why?
Andrea also told them for the first time that she had received emails from Hemy discussing his feelings. Sides said that Andrea never directly said that she believed Hemy was responsible for the murder of Rusty, and that the first time they heard that was in that January 5th interview after Hemy's arrest. When the defense presented their case, one of their first witnesses was Jane Neuman, the executive director of Dunwoody Prep. She was inside the school in a meeting when the shooting occurred. She said she had a phone call with Rusty's father that morning, a call she would never forget. Because, she said, she's the one who told him that Rusty had been shot.
It was one of the worst moments of my life. I had to tell a father that his son was shot.
What did Mr. Sneiderman say when he called you? What were his
He
first
said,
words?
"My name is Donald Sneiderman. I'm Rusty Sneiderman's father. What happened to my son?" Just like that.
Did he say that his daughter-in-law had called him? And,
No. What happened to my son?
And what were your next words, ma'am?
There was an accident.
And what did he say after that?
What type of accident?
He didn't say he heard she'd been shot, right?
What type of accident?
Okay. And what did you say next, ma'am?
He was shot.
And what did Mr. Sneiderman say after?
He was shot, just like that. So I've had to live with that all those years.
The defense's next witness was Sergeant Gary Cordellino with the Dunwoody Police Department. Sergeant Cordellino testified that he did not tell Andrea that her husband had been shot. However, when she got there, he said yellow crime scene tape was up, and police officers were actively looking for shell casings. Andrea's friend Tammy took the stand next. She was asked to describe Andrea's relationship with her husband Rusty prior to the murder.
Typically, when you would see them together, would you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the way they interacted with one another?
They were a partnership. They did a lot of things together. They went shopping together at Walmart. I mean, they did everything together. They just were together a lot.
Did they seem compatible?
Oh, most definitely.
Tammy also said that Andrea talked to her about Hemy.
Did you ever have conversations with her concerning her boss?
Yes.
When would those conversations have been?
It was late June, maybe early July, that Andrea first called me to talk to me about her boss.
What did she tell you?
She expressed concern. She said, "I don't know, this could be in my head. I just get a really weird vibe. I feel like my boss is hitting on me." And she didn't know how to handle it. She said, "Well, you're in the corporate world, was looking for some guidance or advice. What should I do?"
Okay. Did you in turn have occasion to, were you in the corporate world at that time?
Yes.
Who were you working for?
For a real estate developer.
Okay. And are you an attorney?
Yes.
Okay. Did you talk to Andrea Sneiderman?
Yes.
Okay. Did you share with her your opinion as to what she ought to do?
Yes, I did.
What was that opinion that you shared with Andrea Sneiderman?
Based on some limited research that I had done, I advised her not to report the incident to her HR department at her company.
Can you recall the specific time frame in which you would have made that suggestion to her?
It was late June, early July. She was particularly concerned about an upcoming trip that she had out west somewhere, and her boss was going to be going on that same trip.
Okay. Did you subsequently have occasion to have any conversations with Mrs. Sneiderman about that trip?
Yes, we spoke a couple of times within that week about her concerns. At first it was, "This could be in my head." Then in subsequent conversation, she says, "This isn't in my head. My boss is definitely hitting on me." She was very nervous about it. She was very concerned about the idea that he might show up at her hotel room on this trip, and she just felt nauseated and didn't know what to do.
Tammy said that Andrea was shocked and distressed after Rusty's murder. Stephanie Lockridge, another friend of Andrea's, worked for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, or GBI. She testified that after Rusty's murder, Andrea called her to ask if the GBI could get involved in the case because she didn't feel like Dunwoody was doing a good job. Stephanie said she told her that they could only get involved if Dunwoody asked for their assistance. A rabbi named Hirsch Minkowitz testified that he met Andrea on November 19th, the day after Rusty was killed. He said Andrea's sister-in-law, whom he knew, had called and asked if he could come over to their house. He described Andrea as being so upset that she couldn't even walk. She had to have the help of her mother to get across the room. He said Andrea asked him to print out copies of the suspect sketch and pass them out at the funeral, and that Andrea coordinated multiple attempts to get the story out to the media in the following weeks. He said that on November 29th, the story had died down in the news, and Andrea was getting concerned about that. So he and Andrea met with Deputy Chief David Sides about what they could do to increase media attention. He said Sides told them he didn't think an increased reward would do anything, but they contacted 2 news stations afterwards. He said they wanted the story back in the news again and to get the sketch out there so they could get new tips. Another friend, Andrea Lippman, testified that Andrea also told her that her boss was making unwanted advances towards her. She said she told her that if it got worse, she may have to find another job or learn how to deal with it. Other friends and associates of Andrea's testified that she and Rusty had a good marriage, that they never saw anything odd about their relationship. Then the defense brought in a digital forensics expert, Larry Daniel, with Guardian Digital Forensics. He testified that even though Andrea and Hemy's phones may have pinged from the same tower while on their business trips, it didn't mean that they were in the same room. They could be a mile or a mile and a half apart. Another computer forensics expert testified that there would be no way of knowing if Andrea deleted messages from her phone or if they were deleted by the phone itself. He said that BlackBerry phones have limited data and can self-purge data when they run out of storage. Andrea was asked if she wanted to testify, and she said that she didn't. The defense rested their case. Closing arguments for the prosecution and the defense couldn't have been more opposite. The defense called their client a victim, while the prosecution called her a liar. After their closing arguments concluded, the jury went out to deliberate Andrea's fate. And 11 hours later, they came back with their verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman, count 1, hindering the apprehension of a criminal, guilty. Count 2, concealment of material facts, guilty. Count 3, false statement, guilty. Count 4, perjury, not guilty. Count 5, false statement, not guilty. Count 6, perjury, guilty. Count 7, perjury, not guilty. Count 8, false statement, guilty. Count 9, perjury, guilty. Count 10, false statement, guilty. Count 11, perjury, guilty. Count 12, perjury, guilty. And count 13, perjury, not guilty.
Andrea was found guilty of 4 counts of perjury, hindering the apprehension of a criminal, concealment of material facts, and 3 counts of giving false statements. She was found not guilty on 3 counts of perjury and 1 count of giving a false statement. Andrea was sentenced the following day, and this time she took the stand again.
Your Honor, I'm here to ask for your leniency for the sake of my children, Sophia and Ian. I'm going to try to find the words to describe what it's been like. An indescribable and unimaginable almost 3 years. I met Rusty when I was 18. We fell in love and began our futures together. After having children, I worked from home. And G was my first job back in an office environment. It was an exciting and terrifying time for me. I didn't know what to expect. At first, I thought my boss, Mr. Neuman, was a nice guy, taking an interest in me as his new employee. He was showing and teaching me the business, and I was appreciative. I believed he controlled my career, and I let him, therefore, control my time and too much of my life. I wanted to do well, and I thought being nice to him was the answer. One of my greatest regrets will always be allowing this predator into my life. For not being stronger, for not dispelling his advances sooner. I viewed Mr. Neuman as a mentor, a kind and helpful man, a father of 3.
never thought Mr. Neuman was capable of murder. As time went on, our friendship grew. So too did my reliance on him at work. The line of appropriate conduct clearly blurred. In hindsight, I should have told Rusty about his advances. I should have quit my job, filed a report with HR, and hid from Mr. Neuman. There are so many reasons that I didn't. Yes, I was flattered by what seemed like harmless attention. I thought I could handle him. I thought he was just a man being a man. And the things that I did, like introducing him to Rusty and sending him pictures of our happy family, they all backfired. I didn't know this mild-mannered business executive was capable of killing anyone. In hindsight, knowing now that Mr. Neuman is a murderer, I wish I would have immediately opened my GE emails and gone through them, as this court has done, for signs of what can now be seen as an obsession with me. What I remembered as isolated, inappropriate, and insignificant comments tell a different story when read in chronological order, and with the knowledge that Mr. Neuman killed my husband. I am shamed by and apologize for my emails. I regret sharing anything personal with this man. Allowing him to get too close to me on an emotional level was a complete betrayal, as I've never shared my personal feelings with any man other than Rusty. But I want to be clear. There was no physical romance between Mr. Neuman and me. No sex, no kissing, nothing, other than putting my head on his shoulder to cry and holding his hand on one occasion to comfort him. I was never leaving my true love, Rusty, and our children, and I made that clear, especially in October of 2010. After November 18th, 2010, when Mr. Neuman killed Rusty, I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. My life was misery without Rusty. And if not for my children, I wanted to die. I felt those exact same feelings when visiting Rusty's gravesite with Sophia and Ian last week. For the first time in a year. Despite my state of mind following the murder, I did nothing to obstruct justice in any way. I gave the police names, passwords, access to all of my personal and GE computers and phone information. When asked on November 19th, 2010, if I knew anyone interested in breaking up my family, I said yes, and immediately gave Mr. Neuman's name to the police. At the time, I felt great apprehension about giving the name of my boss, someone who I thought was a friend, to the police as a murder suspect. But I was asked a question, and I answered it truthfully. I later took the stand at Mr. Neuman's murder trial because I wanted to prove that he was sane. I did not prepare for my testimony. I didn't review any emails, and I ignored all the people who told me not to testify. I was shocked when the prosecution began attacking me and making me the focal point of Mr. Neuman's trial. Without an attorney to object to the inappropriate and irrelevant questioning, I fought back and I tried to defend myself. I'm embarrassed when I watch the tape of my testimony, and I feel it does not represent who I am. Hemy Neuman has already robbed my children of their father and his love. Rusty is no longer here to play baseball with Ian or to carry Sophia on his shoulders. He will never have the chance to raise his children. He should be at Ian's bar mitzvah. He should be there to walk Sophia down the aisle should be there the day they graduate from high school and college. He will never get to sit at the head of the Passover table again or with his grandchildren. He deserved to have that. There is an entire history that's been erased by Mr. Neuman, and it will never be. Sophia and Ian desperately need me to help fill that role for them. They have already suffered so much. Since last August, they've had no parent to join them at school events, to take them to the playground, or to go have an ice cream, all because the state wrongly charged me with a murder that I had nothing to do with and would do anything to undo. I want to go back to the life I had with Rusty. This is not a world that I understand anymore. However, I am determined to raise my children to be happy, productive citizens of this country. I'm the person that should be doing that. Sophia and Ian have been punished enough. Please let me go home to my kids. Mr. Neuman changed my children's lives forever by killing their father. Please don't make them live without their mother. Thank you.
Judge Adams sentenced Andrea to 5 years on each count, but ordered that they be served concurrently. He also gave her credit for the 3 weeks she spent in jail after her initial arrest, and credit for the 11 months she spent on house arrest. After serving 22 months in prison, in June 2014, Andrea was released on parole. And as of August 21st, 2017, her parole supervision will be completed. And because she was sentenced under Georgia's First Offender Act, her felony convictions will be erased, as long as she stays out of trouble until then. And by all accounts, it's looking like she has. Well, if you remember, I told you at the end of part 1 that there were 2 trials left. And that's because in June 2015, the Georgia Supreme Court, in a 6-1 decision, reversed Hemy's conviction. They ruled that while the evidence presented at trial was sufficient to conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that Hemy was guilty, it must be reversed because the trial judge erred when he allowed in notes and records from 2 mental health experts who had examined Hemy before the trial began. Basically, there were 2 doctors who evaluated Hemy for the defense prior to the trial. But instead of using those 2 doctors, the defense used other experts at trial, and instead of determining that those 2 doctors' accounts wouldn't be admissible due to attorney-client privilege, the judge allowed the prosecutors to use the notes from those doctors. The Georgia Supreme Court also said that only those who previously treated insanity defendants have to make their notes public. So Hemy got a retrial, but prosecutors did things a little different this time. They didn't call Andrea Sneiderman to the stand, nor did they play her testimony from the first trial. In fact, neither the prosecution nor the defense repeated their accusations that Andrea had something to do with Rusty's murder. The defense was now saying that Andrea was only guilty of having an extramarital affair with Hemy, who was delusional, and that delusion, complicated by his bipolar disorder, led him to murder Rusty. But unfortunately for Hemy, his retrial would have the same outcome. He was found guilty of malice murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Andrea released a statement to reporters after Hemy's second conviction. She wrote, quote, "I am relieved that the legal system has condemned this cold-blooded killer to a sentence of life in prison where he belongs. After a 6-year ordeal, millions of taxpayer dollars spent, a DA's personal vendetta, and my own public persecution by those who wanted to profit from my loss, this monster's calculated efforts to destroy lives is finally over. His path of destruction has come to an end, and the healing process for all of his victims can begin." Despite being wrongfully accused of murder, imprisoned, separated from my children, and used by the state, defense, and media when it was convenient for them, I finally have the opportunity to begin to grieve. This trial has shown what the focus of the first trial should have been: a lying, manipulative, and calculating sociopath who selfishly took my husband's life to fulfill some twisted fantasy that he alone concocted in order to mentally cope with his own miserable existence. Unlike this embodiment of pure evil, Rusty was an amazing man and a wonderful husband and father. No one that truly knew us would ever doubt my loyalty, love, or dedication to him and our family. He is missed every day by me, my children, and so many others who have helped to provide support to myself and my family during this impossible time. Whether or not you believe that Andrea had something to do with her husband's murder, by all accounts, she's right in that last part of her statement, that Rusty Sneiderman is no doubt missed by his family and friends, including his 2 young children. And that's all for today's episode. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on this case. Do you think that Andrea had something to do with her husband's murder? And if so, what do you think her level of involvement was? Or do you think that Andrea was treated unfairly? Let me know by either joining our discussion in our Facebook discussion group, which you can get to by going to courtjunkie.com/Facebook, or you can follow me on Twitter @courtjunkiepod, on Instagram @courtjunkie, or you can email me at podcast@courtjunkie.com. I want to say a special thank you to Lady Justice 2188 on YouTube for letting me use her audio. She has a really great channel with some fascinating trial coverage that you should definitely check out. And I also want to thank some more of my Patreon supporters. Thank you to Crystal, Heather, Murder Road Trip Podcast, Kimberly, and Linda. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to donate to this podcast and get early, ad-free access to the episodes, you can do that by going to courtjunkie.com/support. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.